It's like, well, true, maybe, but that's also just like not how Conquest works, right? Like, what if this happens and then the priest has got its win and it's done?
Decent openers on both sides. That Condemn, I think, can arguably be a keep in this matchup. Less so against Bozzzton's build, because Bozzzton is electing not to run the best 2-drop in Hearthstone in his deck. So that Condemn does not have to deal with like a massive board spread wide with like 4 or 5 1/1s as often as it would do against the pack runner version of the deck. But still, you can just see based on the cards that are in Bozzzton's hand, right? Like Wolpertinger, Tour Guide, Wound Prey, and Demon Companion 1/3 of the time are all 1 health minions that Condemn can deal with. But Jarla is going to choose to toss it away here.
Yeah, and weirdly enough, a huge part of me thinks like Bozzzton should maybe toss most, if not all of this hand as well. He is just going to throw away the Tour Guide.
Kill it with fire. Oh, that hand, no. Can we start again, Raven?
I don't think that's allowed.
Isn't that what Mulligan means? I'm pretty sure that's what Mulligan means.
I've lost so many games and I didn't know that was the rule. We could have just restarted.
Yeah.
You know, some of these choices are interesting to me, and obviously I think I'm naturally going to lean towards looking towards Hunter plays here, as I always do. But the Wound Prey, I'm not sure is good right now versus like any other of Bozzzton's cards. So I'm looking forward to seeing what he does with that, whether it ends up just being a one-to-face make a 1/1 kind of thing.
Right.
There is a slightly increased amount of burst damage in this list because Knife Vendor is a 2-of in Bozzzton's deck, along with, of course, double piercing shot and those scrap shots, of course, as well, that we see 1 of in hand. 4 mana deal 3 to face, and if it buffs a minion, cool. If it doesn't, well, it dealt damage to face, so cool. So, there is a thing to that. I do just wonder where this Wound Prey is going to fit in with Bozzzton's, next 2 to 3 turns.
Yeah, Headhunter's Hatchet on top of that as well is a bit of additional reach, where a lot of the lists now are running the 1 Ringling's Rifle as the only weapon. Bozzzton has both.
If he does Adorable Infestation this turn, it gives him a minion to hit with Coin Scrap Shot next turn, so I do like this.
A minion to hit with Coin Scrap Shot. Yeah, so you buff a minion and then you shoot that same minion with Scrap Shot.
Yes, perfect.
Right. Yeah.
You know what I meant.
I do. Jarla chose not to spend his mana on the previous turn, I think specifically because he has Palm Reading here. Like, Palm Reading can actually kind of buy you that mana back that you did not spend on the previous turn, right? By firstly discounting the Insight and then corrupting it. So your 1 mana spell that you then cast then generates you 2 more mana back. So you kind of make up for the mana that you didn't spend on the previous turn.
And honestly, although Jarla's opening hand is clearly not good, if he insights Blademaster Samuro, this game might just end.
Yep.
Because he has the cheap Apotheosis as well. That would be insane.
You are not wrong.
This is a card in Face Hunter that I still can't make my mind up about. I know some people have done great with lists with Scavengers in, and I do like the card in general, but I cannot decide whether it's worth it, because also, I think something to point out as well, let me just triple check. Yeah, Bozzzton doesn't run Barak Coda Bane in his list, and one thing I've found, at least in my games, is that Barak, like, always drawing you a quick shot is very nice because it's just reliable damage. Whereas, of course, if you're running Barak with Scavengers, then you can like whiff, so to speak.
Interestingly, I've had that argument presented to me the other way around when I was talking to a player who, they played 1 Scavenger's Ingenuity in the Warsong Wrangler list. And I was like, oh, why are you playing Scavengers? And they're like, well, because it's an extra 2-mana spell, so I can now draw 2 2-mana spells and still get full value out of my Barak Kodo Bane later on, right? Because sometimes you draw both quick shots, and then your Barak is drawing you nothing. To which generally my response is, if you've drawn both quick shots, you've probably got enough damage in your hand that the game has ended.
Hold on.
Oh!
It happened.
Hold the dog and bone, Raven. What are we talking about? Because it doesn't matter. This is what matters.
It really does. Devouring Plague this turn if Jarla wants. And I think that's my question. Because, like... I mean, you can just take the damage, right? What? Okay, here's a better question. If he doesn't do it, is there anything that punishes him?
Needs 11 damage. Like, he needs 11 damage for 4 mana, right? 5 mana, including the coin. Is that ever possible? Second Demon Companion is 5. And Knife Fender would add 4. That would be short. Piercing Shot? Animal Companion Piercing Shot is 10 extra damage. So he could die there. That was...
Right.
Yeah, okay. So if he could die there, you cast it. If there's any combination of cards where you die, you absolutely do it.
But now, it's not only the Reno heal effect that is going to happen, it's the fact that, like, well, how does Bozzzton kill it?
Yeah.
Even after the fact, right? It's not as if it goes away after it did the trade. It can trade into a 1-attack minion, so it doesn't even take initial, like, high damage on the Blade Master anyway. And this is one of the reasons why the matchup feels very hard. Like, some of these players are so strong from Priest, you almost can't come back from them. Nice scrap shot, though. I like this purely because he has Warpatinger in hand, right? And these 6/6s now are actually pretty scary.
Yeah, they're a very, very big deal. Because the Blade Master in Apotheosis does not get big enough to answer this board state. He does get the full heal, of course.
Can he wait and double Apotheosis? I'm joking, of course.
Still not big enough, right? He'd still have to attack into one of the bunnies to clear it up. Doesn't actually change anything.
Still, though, it buys Jarla an absolute insane amount of time, and Bozzzton can't ignore this Blade Master, right? You can't just leave it on board. He will try and take it down. I guess that's what the Wound Praise end up being.
Yeah, fortunately.
On turn 5 of the game, he does have them available.
You were asking the question, what's this Wound Prey going to do? Well, double Wound Prey right now. Denying the healing on the opponent that's already at 30.
I don't know if you could sell me on that being good for the keep in the mulligan here, but, you know, it's done a job, so there you go. And now, back to the task at hand for Bozzzton. Okay, Jarla down to 20. Continue. And maybe the Scavengers will help a lot here, acting as card draw too.
Honestly, pretty crucial for Bozzzton to have this 3/4 in play right now. Just having a minion that's resilient to Soul Mirror. Because Soul Mirror, if there was just another minion that died here alongside the Warpatinger, would have been a perfectly fine play here for Jarla. But spending 6 mana just to kill a 6/3 this turn does not seem particularly exciting, but it might just be the best thing he has.
I think it is, because the follow-up can be better, right? He also ends the turn with a 3/1 that Bozzzton has to consider, which might be an Apotheosis target next turn. And also, outside of this awkward board, he's starting to piece together the ways to deal with what's left of Bozzdon's deck, at least in the time he's going to draw it. If Jarla had 1 more mana, this would have been the sickest Elucia turn.
Bozzzton looking at his opponent down at 14 health and saying, well, you know what? I saw 1 Apotheosis. This is 1 damage that I'm about to shoot at a minion here to be able to clear it up. Is that ever worth it?
Well, it has to be, right? Because the 3/1 just trades into a 4/1 next turn. So surely it's worth killing. I guess he's thinking, like, does he kill it? And he always kills it with the damage, right? And just has an extra 1/1 on board.
Yep. Like it.
Okay.
He's just thinking about, like, if there's a Condemn in hand, if, like, any of that. Like, there's so many cards that could just make that 1/1 not matter, whereas 1 damage is pretty much always relevant at this point. Like, Jarla probably isn't going to go back to 30 this game, right? So 1 damage come hell or high water will probably matter at some point in this game.
I think it was the Kolak on board, because it could have not been 1 damage, it could have been 2.
Yeah.
So I think that's where I was just like, oh, Kolik's so good for pushing extra damage, and you've just like deleted a minion. But I completely understand, right? 1 AoE, and you just missed a damage, basically.
It's just anything, you know, like it's Condemn, it's Renew into Holy Nova, it's Renew into the 3-mana lifesteal spell, right? Like all of these things just kind of punish you for that extra minion being on board.
Has to be Sethic, right?
Did he just play Ogremancer?
I think it's Sethic, maybe even double Sethic Apotheosis, right?
I think, sorry, I think you just play the Onyx Mage Scribe, don't you? So you know your opponent's
aware of the Rhino. Yeah.
Exactly, you know what the card is, right? Oh! You know what the card is, and you know that it doesn't actually deal damage to this minion, right? But then you also, like, you make it mandatory for this minion to be cleared, or else you can swing the game with Apotheosis on the following turns. I actually really like this. I think this is a fantastic risk that Jarla took this turn.
So now Bozzzton got to work out whether he wants to use Quick Shot now to kill this off, or something else plus Rhino. What if he passes? Does he have to kill this?
I mean, he doesn't, but he'll get punished extremely hard for not killing it.
It's going to go with the minion. I do like holding the Quick Shot. It's so much extra damage because of what your expected draw is going to be. Especially at this point, I think 2 piercing shots still left in the deck, of course.
Yep, agreed.
There's another Knife Vendor in there because I think he's only played the 1. Like, everything's looking pretty good here for Bozzzton.
It's just not helpful, is it?
What if he... No, it's not. I mean, we can see Alusha would be pretty sweet right now. Alusha Quick Shot the 8-3.
Yeah.
And obviously he's not going to... I guess the Apotheosis is a bit scary with the Sethics to like maybe get buff lethal on the return. But I don't know. I don't know where Jarla's head is at right now. It's super
that's the problem. That's the problem with the Alusha, right? Is that like even if you could see the Quick Shot, if you kind of like path out what's going to happen, is like you go Alusha, you Quick Shot the 8-3, but then your opponent goes Sethic Apotheosis, and then worst case scenario, even if the spell that he gets off that is unplayable, he just then plays another Sethic, and he's just back miles ahead on board, threatening lethal again the following turn, right? It just, nothing really changes in that dynamic. That's kind of huge, but not huge enough. 9 in play, Quick Shot already was going to get the job done.
Yeah, piercing shot, Quick Shot does not matter. All the damage in the world there for Bozzzton, and he made it work. And honestly, have all your questions about Scrap Shot as you want, but in that game, it did a lot of work because it made those Walpatingers an actual real threat for Jarla to deal with.
Yeah, huge. It actually was huge. And without a big minion coming down that turn, the game was over because it would have been full tempo swing from the Samuro. And not only full tempo swing, it wouldn't have been a 2 health Samuro that was left on the board. It would have had 7 or 8 health, depending on what it had to trade into, because there wouldn't have been a big minion that survived on the board. So Scrap Shot definitely coming in clutch and you know, showing to be the way there for Jarla. But you know, you do have to just look at that hand on Jarla's side. Like, well, he had a Lucia in his hand, just kind of trashing the matchup. He's had Ysera stuck far left the entire time. Didn't see a Condemn the entire time, although I will say he did throw it away from his opening hand, and then did not see it again for the rest of the game. So definitely an unfortunate draw for Jarla, but Bozzzton once again being able to put it together with this this much maligned, at least by me, version of Face Hunter. But he continues to make me look very, very stupid by picking up wins with it.
Yeah, and I think one thing that is interesting me greatly, and I'm sure, you know, Gio will have a great time this week, is the mulligan decisions are super like hard right now, because obviously the meta's extremely fresh with the new patch, and the decks are so varied that these players are bringing this week especially. I feel like no one really knows how to mulligan, like, no, this is the correct mulligan, full stop. You know what I mean? Like, we've seen this from multiple different players, multiple different decks, multiple different matchups, and I don't know, it's just super cool for me to just check out all these mulligans and the different approaches certain players have.
Jarla going to move over to the Spell Mage now. He is still a Deck of Lunacy gamer, still in there, and he's continuing to play the 1 Ice Barrier, 1 Ring Toss as well, which I think, specifically does pretty well against the decks that Bozzzton is running. It can be very difficult to play those cards for full mana, but if you do start to get Incanta's Flow going, that is very, very nice. And of course, as I keep mentioning, just having any secrets in your deck plays very, very nicely with Deck of Lunacy because of the way 3s turning into 6s interact with feeding you card draw the majority of the time. So I think Jarla has a pretty good looking list for going up against Bozzzton's decks, but I do think Spell Mage in general is an extremely vulnerable deck to the strategy that Bozzzton is putting together, and I think hitting this mirror match might actually be the best case scenario for Jarla with his Spell Mage.
Yeah, it's about as fair as it's going to get, isn't it? It's a few differences in the list, not as secret heavy here for Bozzzton, going for a much more just kind of 2 of everything route. But yeah, in general, it's just going to be one of those close matchups. We're going to see whether Deck of Lunacy is going to be the deciding factor, whether Incanta's Flow, maybe versus no Incantas early on, can make a huge impact to who gets ahead as well. But also even just the smaller plays, right? We've talked about Rhino Tennis in Hunter, but of course there's that Apexis Blast kind of back and forth between these decks too. So there's a lot of small things that can make some big impacts to this matchup. Yes,
for sure. And I think, more and more, I think we've come to realize that the deck isn't decided by Lunacy. Like, I want to say I've known that more than most because I was playing the deck on day one without Lunacy in it and running into Lunacy on the other side and saying, what are these strange people doing? Why have you put that meme card in your deck? What are you doing? Because you can still put together a pretty consistent burn plan, right? Like, as long as you get Incanta's Flow and you get card draw, especially now when they have to take a full turn off on turn 4 usually to play Deck of Lunacy, that is still very beatable by the burn plan because there are very limited cards, even under Deck of Lunacy conditions, that are able to full heal you, right? Unless you're on a Flow then Lunacy game, in which case your deck just isn't really that high pressure, so the Mage can deal with that anyway on the other side. So I do think the burn plan can beat the Lunacy plan quite consistently if it comes down to that. And it looks like that is the dynamic we might be set with here, because it's Flow and Burn in the hand for Bozzzton, and it is Lunacy in the hand for Jarla.
Yeah, Lunacy and card draw as well, right? Which definitely helps too. Just, you obviously, a lot of the card draw cards go into other cards, but, just having Arcane Intellect at least as something to help just get into those Lunacy cards will be a big deal. But what's very interesting is, like, when it comes to it, if Jarla's in a position to feel comfortable just playing Lunacy at all. And like, for example, does he then plan to hold this Arcane Intellect?
I expect yes and yes to be the answer to those 2 questions, Raven, because Bozzzton's not really off to a flying start here. It's not like a super minion-heavy start, right? He's just going to play Flow on 2. So there's a good chance that Jarla will feel super comfortable here dropping the Lunacy. And yes, I fully expect that this card draw will be greeded for post-Lunacy here as well.
What about this one, though, with the spell damage and cram session, right? You can probably play this. This is kind of tough.
Yeah, this one I like. I'll take 2 cards from my deck over 1 Lunacy card later, I imagine. I think that's probably a good deal. Oh, very nice. Very nice. Lunacy into Flow. The rarely seen combination now doing it this way around.
Kind of awkward. The best openings that if you want to play the burn plan is like a Font of Power somewhere along this line, just so you can actually get some minions on the board here. But Bozzzton, not really hitting it right now. Got to choose between Ping, Pass, Cram Session, or mainly nothing else, because I think he'll want to save that coin for Apexis Blast at this point.
Right. If not save it for Apexis Blast, save it for Mask of Cthulhu. Really depends how this game comes together. think I'm happy with Cram Session for 1 here, personally.
Yeah, I mean, the Thanos doesn't feel like it's ever going to be too punishing, especially on turn 4. But again, I guess the idea here is if he's planning on coining a Pexis, does he want that Thanos just sticking around on the board?
That's a good point. Yeah, that is a very fair point indeed.
Now,
Jarla's,
coin a Pexis,
Jarla,
mask.
Yep, Jarla does commit to the to the lunacy plan, and Bozzzton quite rightly responds in kind with this coin Apexis. He knows he has to giddy up now, but little does he know Jarla has the perfect response to stave this off immediately. Wow, okay, even better.
The boss has to giddy up, but little no, Jarla has a car. So it's going to be a little bit crazy here. This removal is actually just insane. But how does he want to do this? Does he want to flow and then just not draw?
I kind of still just like using the Apexis Blast this turn, I think.
Okay.
Yeah, just take the tennis. Because then next turn you can... Oh my goodness.
But
Next turn, you do have the possibility to like remove a minion if you need to, plus flow, plus draw, right? You can just do it all in one turn next turn if you really want to. So I think just allocating the Apexis Blast this turn is pretty fine.
Yeah, one less card to have flow on, not the end of the world. Because you're ahead on board, right?
Yeah, and when every card in your deck is cheating 3 mana anyway, it's not really the biggest deal in the world, right? To save 1 extra mana on one of them.
Could always be better, so it could always be.
Yep. Yep.
Okay. We'll go for Devolve here to maybe save some removal, but is he expecting to need removal? Maybe, because he's seen Lunacy.
I think he is very much expecting to need removal this game.
Because Combustion Brain Freeze feels very expensive here.
It does, I agree. Oh, he's going for it though.
Deciding that Lunacy, same words now. Deciding that Devolving Missiles, is actually going to have more of an impact, which I don't know whether that's true on average, but we'll see how it plays out. Oh, counter Netherwind?
Kind of the dream in this matchup, right? Is just to take the 2 spells that interact with the secrets. Sorry, 2 secrets that interact with spells, rather.
I wasn't even 100% sure if he picked those. I'm just presuming he did because it seems very correct.
Yeah, that's what he's got.
Ruined Orb isn't a bad pickup here just to be able to like burn a potential counterspell. And it's not the worst card if it's not counterspell. Well, you just discover a spell and continue with your day.
Yep, agreed. There's no way Bozzzton can just rip the mask here, and I think that's doubly why this was smart timing and a smart pick from Jarla, is that he's keeping track of the game state, right? He knows this is turn 6, he knows his opponent has a flowed deck, he knows if there's a mask in hand, there's a very good chance that it costs 6, therefore does not want to take 10 damage to his face this turn, so dropping a counterspell is a very smart thing to do here.
And I also think by now, it's very obvious that Bozzzton is primarily going to have to go for a burn plan, right? No Lunacy's been played. He has 6 cards in hand. He's tried to push some damage with the first Apexis Blast. You know, that it's all just leading to a very convincing, well, you are just going for it.
Wow.
I'm surprised, because he could have Ruined Orb and still just fireballed or something. Was that the emote from Jarla?
It was the emote.
Oh.
Okay. You remember the one last week? He's an emote gamer now.
Wait a minute. We've got a real game on our hands, Sal.
There's a glide!
And I'm
Anything's
not even
possible.
about Grand Slam.
Anything's possible with glide, Raven.
He can gloat while he gloats. It'll be great.
Yeah.
Mask of
Bozzzton keeping track.
Down.
Bozzzton keeping track that time. I think you saw him head to one side, checking the deck list there, recognize that secret came from the natural deck of Jarla, so no hesitation that time in ripping the mask into that one.
Let's get the Kodo that gives Jarla armor, though. So I think this Devolving, might have to just come out here.
Indeed.
Look at that happy buck.
You like turbo Tidal Surge your 1/1 this turn, right? Surely.
I don't see why not.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, I like this. Like everything
Oh,
else
man.
can be saved for next turn, so just take the health.
Yep. He still has lethal set up because he has 12 on board plus the Donk Tonk going face for 4 on the following turn.
Official name.
Yeah, that's what it's called. Flame Strike is a playable Hearthstone card.
I mean, there's no choice, is there? Surely he can't Rune Orb for something else, because I do not know what that something else is, Saul.
No. But he still has Springwater, right? He's just considering like any reason not to do it now, any reason to do it now. All of the above, none of the above. So he gets his 1 mana back, which means he can now still rip that second Rune Orb. He can rip it with a lab partner here, or he can choose to hold on to it for potentially multi-spells on a following turn.
Yeah, I think the fight's 0 mana, and he doesn't need to play it right now. He could just wait, right? Just Flame Strike, keep this simple, and save all burn that he's got. Oh, he's going to rip it, okay. Oh. Illusion! Illusion! Get another spell damage minion.
That was not it, was it?
Oh.
Wait a minute. That has to be it, right? Yeah. Between Donk, Mask, and Fireball, that's got to get the job done. I don't think he even needs the initiation, but he can fit that in as well. But yeah, this is what I saw straight away. It's just Donk the face.
Puts them in.
We are good. Yep.
Really good game there from Jarla. Of course, he did go for that Lunacy plan, whereas it was not on the cards for Bozzzton. But also, just locking out that Mask of Cthulhu was absolutely huge.
Yeah, for sure. Say what you will about Bozzzton's decision to play it that turn. Maybe he felt his position was so dire that if he didn't get the mask off that turn, he probably wasn't going to win anyway. Like, the dynamic with Ring Toss is interesting because if you're looking for one secret, you're almost certain to find it, right? With 2 shots looking at 3 secrets. It's the question you just have to ask yourself there as Bozzzton is like, is my opponent looking for Counterspell in this position? And for me, I think I explained like reasonably well why Jarla would be looking for Counterspell in that position. The board's empty, it's 6 mana, your deck is flowed, you probably have a mask in your hand that costs 6, right? So I think that's definitely a crucial point of decision in the matchup for Bozzzton. But you can also just make the argument that like he's so far behind, he has to take major risks, right, to be able to get himself over the line because he's going to run out of turns very quickly to get anything done with the amount of pressure that comes back at you from Deck of Lunacy.
Well, you can even see it, right? Say he procs Counterspell with Rune Orb. He's 1 spell down because he can't discover. Then that Grand Slam comes out.
Yeah.
Great, he fireballed face and he's got a Mask of Cthulhu. What does that do against that Grand Slam? And that's one situation, but I think that general thought pattern is fair to what you would expect the rest of the game to look like. And you have to take those empty boards for Mask of Cthulhu because you want the whole point of the card is it's a lot of burst damage for not a lot of mana on a relatively empty board. So again, I think that play looked way worse than it actually was from Bozzzton's point of view there.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think that play is, fine. At least defensible if we want to, move down the standards of Hearthstone plays. But we will move on series now 1-1. Hunters picked up a win on Bozzzton's side. Mage picked up a win on Jarla's side. But this, for me, this is going to be the question mark because this is not only Control Warlock, it's greedy Control Warlock. There is a Backfire in here. There is a Rustwix in here. There is double Siphon Soul in here as well. Those are some clunky cards to be using against the likes of Face Hunter and Weapon Rogue. So I think this is potentially the big question mark for me as to whether Jarla can get this particular deck over the line in this series.
Yeah, and I think it's pretty clear that this is Jarla probably just giving a nod to saying, actually, I need to be able to feel like I can convincingly beat other Warlocks. So that's definitely something that can help out with this kind of build, with that Rustwix, of course, shuffling more cards in the deck too. So Yeah, this is probably, I agree with you, the problem one, and it is going to be Bozzzton on his mage again. But honestly, again, I think that if there's a deck it can manage through, it might well be this mage, because Bozzdon's other decks will prey on this warlock and the fact that it's more of a late game base, whereas mage, as we can see, can either not get all its bursts together at once. The lunacy can, you know, kind of kick you a little bit sometimes, and you just happen to hit loads of card draw and not enough like actual threats such as Nagrand Slam. So, you know, there are ways out here for Jarla, and I think if Jarla does take the game here with the warlock, he might be feeling pretty good about the rest of the series.
Oh, how the turntables have turned, Raven.
That's definitely the saying. Yeah. Deck of Lunacy is available for him, and Bozzzton is going to be keeping it. Not too surprised here. Oh, refreshing spring water too.
The dream. Now go coin Lunacy into Springwater and potentially play something absolutely monstrous on turn 4 with that refreshed mana. Got to be a little bit careful with this hand. Sometimes you do have to deliberately not play Font of Power just to keep space in your hand for more important things that you want to draw, particularly when you have a Deck of Lunacy hand in particular. But Bozzzton does just go ahead and rip it and get some pretty clunky cards to get rid of. So we'll wait and see whether this starts to become a problem. As you can already see, kind of becoming a problem here.
Quick, devolving missiles. Well, coin's a card he can get rid of pretty easily. Not this turn, of course. I'm not suggesting that.
Yeah. But like, I'm pretty sure he does not want to flow first here. Again, I don't think the one flow Lunacy deck is the build that you want to be having against Warlock. I think you want maximum power, and Bozzzton clearly agrees. So that does mean he is stuck in a little bit of a spot here with his card draw. Again, when you are on a 0 flow Lunacy, you card draw a lot, and you want to be able to cast that card draw. So just keep an eye on whether these minions actually end up doing anything relevant, or whether they just congest the hand unnecessarily for Bozzzton.
It's kind of strange, right, isn't it? Because we've already seen the power of Varden versus late game Warlock.
Yep.
So the card is good, but is it good enough to hold in hand, right? And then, like you said, can be a little bit clunky here. Jarla just going for max card draw himself. Really powerful, honestly. Like, just to draw 3 for 3 mana is such a crazy amount. Not really having much to do even in the next turn or so. It's so much, like, it's either removal or end game stuff. There's nothing in between.
Good card.
Are you okay, Sol?
I'm great, yeah. So Bozzzton has at least a guaranteed turn this turn with Refreshing Springwater, because he has 9 cards right now, so Springwaters goes back up to 10. At the very worst, he can just play Expendable Performers and just feel absolutely fine about that. Or drop one of his 4 mana minions. Yeah. Could also choose to go like you could, yeah. I mean, you could just play a minion here. You could also just like flow Cram Session this turn, which also dumps 1 card from your hand and gets that discount done now, and then just go for the Refreshing Springwater next turn.
Bozzzton clearly thinking about every option here and probably feeling a little bit indecisive about it, because it's hard, right? I think this turn is really difficult to say, like, this was correct after you finish the turn. I think that's pretty tough. This is a good minion now, though it's been buffed. The Wormweaver is a 3/5. It's relatively sticky. Oh, playing minions is kind of what Warlock wants you to do, right, at this stage?
It's true, yeah. I think personally I would have ended up on Flow Cram Session that turn. So I feel like this play, like, you know, your minion dies almost certainly, right? You're playing against Control Warlock, they're going to be able to kill this. And then you're just kind of right back in the same spot, right? Like, you still can't flow first, then Springwater, which obviously is the dream. So are you willing to delay that for like 2 full turns? Obviously that is a nutty draw now.
Okay. Could have been 1 mana.
Could have been 1 mana, yeah.
Yeah, I think no matter what happens here, like, just Apexis Blast and Flow need to be played.
to get second place. Make it double.
Beautiful ordering. Getting to trigger the spell burst as well on his keyword and Ivory. Fantastic stuff.
Yep, keeps it nice and clean. No little icons on the board that don't do anything.
Yeah, exactly.
Jarla stacking up on these soul fragments in the list now is starting to get pretty interesting, I believe. He is on... Oh, I can't tell you because my thing's died. He's on a lot, I'm going to say. So this militia is going to be pretty huge. It's just a clear threat for Bozzzton to deal with.
6. He has 6 soul fragments
my.
currently. Yeah.
Never mind, Libram and Ranker kind of get that job done, don't they?
I love he just has all of these broken cards in his hand. It's like, yep, 6 mana, Boulder Fist Ogre. Let's go.
All he needs now is a Modrash and he can maybe get there. Nothing?
Nope.
It is pretty crazy. He just has a straight clear for Militia. Like, an effortless one at that.
Time runs out on me.
Jarla has 2 real options here, doesn't he? He has Militia or it's some kind of Siphon Soul X play, whether that's Live Tap or Spirit Jailer. Doesn't look like he's going to go for that Militia, though. Makes sense.
Yep, agreed. I think the full board, the counter pressure is just too much to turn down here. We can see just how nutty the responses are from Bozzzton. Like, he can delete this whole board and gain 10 armor for 1 mana. Like, what?
I was going to add 1 mana and 2 cards, but does it matter when you have, like, Nourish, Cram Session? Like, it just doesn't.
Right.
What to do? What to do?
Okay, I'm going to suggest something silly, as I want to do sometimes. Is there ever a reason to, like, freeze this board and just draw cards and do other stuff? Because you know you can kill any board with this combo? And just maybe yet Jarla play more stuff?
It's possible, yeah. I was thinking also of like doing something silly with expendable performers, where like you could play expendable performers, trade twice, then Libram of Justice, then clear everything else up with the ones that you get, so you get the full board back at the end.
What is this?
I think this just ends up being too powerful. Honestly, at this point, like this hand's kind of garbage. You really would have liked to have drawn some kind of reasonable board generation by this point.
Was it not better because of the way the hand looks with Blessing to actually go expendable that turn and just trade instead?
Just so you have some kind of board presence for the Blessing on the following turn. It's I mean, yeah, but you can still fit expendable Blessing into the same turn, right? Because everything's so cheap.
It's true.
And they have Rush, and like Blessing can't attack face anyway, so there's very little benefit to a minion being preloaded for Blessing when you have Rush minions anyway.
I'm going to see Varden played, though, just out on board as a 3-3, so Bozzzton at least presenting something here. Well, he's going to lose access to that big freeze. Even though these things look powerful that Bozzzton are doing, they're not really the cards he wants, though, right? Like double Rancor against Warlock, Hex, okay. Your Blessed of Authority, well, he has to stick a minion and it not just be Siphon Souled, Cascading, you know, so on, so on, so on. It's like, he needs some power plays right now and he needs them soon.
Yeah. And I think you're seeing here, like, I think Bozzzton clearly understands the dynamic that I was talking about at the start of the game. Like, you're going to draw card draw, right? So you have to spend your mana and play cards out of your hand when you can, which is why Varden, which is a very powerful card, that's why they got played in that spot, is because, they have to have space in the hand to be able to play Nourish on this turn. See the same thing here, just dumping Dark Portal and then getting space open up for this Nourish. He has to find something relevant to do very, very quickly. Oh, no, neither of those are now Grand Slams. Bozzzton is in trouble here. His hand is doing absolutely nothing right now. Expendable Performers Survival of the Fittest turn 10 is like the best thing he has going for himself right now.
Which is weird, because that sounds amazing, but
by the lofty standards that Lunacy Mage has set for itself, it's not a good play.
What if he just does the turn now? Expendable, Blessing, see what happens.
Oh, you're just going to get deleted though, aren't you?
Well, rather get deleted now than later, right?
I mean, I guess that's an attitude you can have, yeah, sure. Yeah, I guess. Like, try and bait one nether and then try and find something else to generate another board with the second survival kind of thing.
Yeah, if there's that attitude and you do the survival turn and it gets nethered anyway, who cares?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, it's fair.
But now Jirax's a strong man on the board for Jarla. It's gone beyond Jarla having to survive Lunacy. Oh, don't do it, Bozzzton. Is it still bugged?
I think so, yeah. I think it is, yeah.
Bozzzton, don't do it.
Cannot fully confirm, but I believe it is, yeah.
Yeah, I'm going off purely the fact that I don't think there's been a patch since. So
right.
I'm assuming it's still bugged.
Sometimes things can be hotfix client-side,
Yes.
though, right? Without an actual patch going out, so I'm not 100% sure.
I wasn't made aware of an announcement, though, so... Ugh.
So you trade all these through, yeah, you trade this last one down, and then you put Blessing of Authority on one of the new ones that comes out, I guess.
Enjoy your final moments. Time runs out on me.
And, like, you may as well trade with the big one, right? Just to have more minions on board? For, like, cascading, maybe?
You'd have an 8 health minion with 6 other 1/1s to trade into, so you're still not weak to Hysteria.
Yeah. It's minor, but I just think it's fine.
Yep, seems fine.
Well, Twisted Nether number 1.
I mean... Well, now there's Siphon Skull Spirits.
Yeah. I think he even could have done, like, the Hysteria Skull Spirits, right? Instead.
Yeah, it feels rough using an AoE just to finish off one target in that spot, though, so I think the Siphon is a huge pickup.
Oh, yeah, I just mean more like it would have saved him a Twisting Nether, which,
yes,
like the hard clear, right?
100%.
In case of crazy Nag Grand Slams.
It's got to be Siphon Spirits Hero Power, right?
I know Jarla plays greedy sometimes, but I'm worried that if he plays greedy here, he's going to die. Oh, this will work. Yeah, this will work. Yeah. This is fine. He heals a lot, right? And he still gets the Skull Spirits off, clears the board. Done.
Yeah, no, I guess this is actually better, right? I was like, honestly, like weirdly backwards in my head. It's like I'm trying to like be more greedy with the Tamsin because I think he can afford to. But if you do the play we're suggesting, you actually just expend a bunch of shadow spells from your hand, right? That you just aren't Tamsining. So I guess this is just the right turn for it. This makes sense.
Soul Mirror again, a good card on paper, but not enough because a lot of Warlock minions are actually symmetrical. The ones that matter, right? So it's like, okay, you can clear a board, but you're not making a board to do anything with.
Yeah. Survival, Soul Mirror, everything value trades, and then you survive with the fittest. That's the line you need.
It's so weird, and I guess this is what can also, or has also stopped this being a truly, like, game-breaking deck, is that sometimes Lunacy just sucks, doesn't it? Like, you know what I mean, though? Like, look at this hand. What's it do?
Yeah, and listen, like, I am a big advocate of the idea that, like, people mess up with this deck and die, and they do dumb things, and, like, they blame the deck being random when actually it's like it's deceptively consistent. I've made the argument on Twitter before that like Lackeys made games more random than Deck of Lunacy does because of how consistent the pool is of cards. but like for sure low rolls still happen, and this is a low roll, right? Like if those 2 survivals were now Grand Slams, like the game's over, you know, like Jarla's just already dead at this point most often.
Now, we're going to view the greed potential of Jarla here, where he just presses hero power and passes.
Mm-hmm.
If anyone's going to do it, I'm pretty sure it'll be Jarla. And I wouldn't even blame him for it. I'm just saying, like, it's the type of play he would make. Am I dead on 21 health and two minions on board? Probably not. So I'll just make a minion. Continue to pressure.
He can continue to pressure quite a lot harder than what you're describing.
Why?
Is the interesting part. Well, because killing your opponent's good.
I truly believe that Jarla thinks there's extra points on the line if he finishes the game with more cards in his hand.
No. Oh!
Wait a minute, he could get a Rustwix.
Oh!
This is insane.
Oh, he could get a Rustwix.
Soul Mirror Rustwix, he gets 2. Get the primes in.
Wait. You're actually just low-key a genius.
Yes! I've been telling you this for years.
And you wait, right? Like, you wait until you draw some primes, so you get full value out of the duel, right? Because the primes have death rattles. Right?
Has he played any other death rattles? I want to say no.
No.
And if that's no, then sure, you can wait. He's not near fatigue. Yeah, he could have waited there. I guess he's valuing to an extent just having a minion on board right now because he has 2 survival at the fittest. But
sure, no, that is reasonable, yeah.
This has just mixed up this game though. Like this, everything's kind of
now. I mean, like depending on what these primes are in each player's decks, like we could have some serious magic happening here.
Shenanigans is the word I'm going to use. Also, like, Bozzzton can just buff these primes with survival as well.
Yep.
I guess you could argue that's another reason to play it now, right? If you get 6 primes in the deck and buffs them with survival twice, like...
That's a good point, actually, yeah. Because I was kind of thinking at it the other way, where, like, if you juice your duel to the point where it revives 3 minions, you can just play that survival when you're buffing 3 minions on board immediately when it revives 3. But yeah, just adding an extra 3 to the deck immediately is you're going to get huge primes with the survival. That does make Oh my god!
Calm down, Sol. So, Hex?
You say Giganuts?
Hex Hellfire?
Hex Hellfire Gurgle. Yep, I like it.
I wonder.
Gonna go for maybe devolving. Oh, wait, can't devolve and play that, right?
You just play it and ping, I suppose. It's actually a good reason not to use your own resources because you know your opponent's just gonna Twisting Nether this board, right?
True. Oh,
where's our Murlocs?
He just needs another one. Prime McGurgle number 2, go.
Yeah. I mean, you trade him ping face, right? It's just net 1 damage. You have to know this board is getting nethered.
Lost value with the duel there because now there's a Death Rattle Murloc in the pool.
Really? Really? What is the reason why you don't trade and ping face? Like, to me, that is just 1 missed damage. Like, there's no way this board survives against double Twisting Nether, right?
Yeah, especially when I want to just point out that although there are 18 cards in Jarla's deck, 8 of them are Soul Fragments right now.
Right. Is it, like, somehow a breakpoint against Hysteria or something? I'm not sure. It's not something that I looked at. That Nourish was a Arcane Intellect before the fact. That just always amuses me where that happens. Oh! These are some nutty primes so far.
Crazy game of the day. Sotul is just having a good time.
I am having a good time.
Well, yeah, this just has to be Rune Carving's survival, right? This is insane.
Yeah, I like it.
to
You know what?
do?
Just scrap shot face for the fun of it at that point.
Just scratch your face. Did he rush? He did not rush. Yeah, I like this. He just used the Hex instead to preserve the 2 mana because you have Mishafin on the following.
Yep. Don't be overloaded.
Like this. Slap face, twisting nether.
Well, yeah.
Is there a way that doesn't twisting nether here? I'm not sure there
I'm just
is.
think Jarla really wants to play Ticketus soon because he's just seen survival and he knows there's at least, what, 2 primes? No, sorry, 4 primes.
4. Yeah, wait, yes. There is at most 5. Yeah.
Yep.
It could be as few as 2, right? Because that Nourish could have literally just drawn 3 primes. Jarla knows.
3, right? Because he played... Didn't he play one of the cards?
Maybe.
The Runic was one of the cards. Even Bozzzton just made that noise for us. Did you see on the cam then?
Is it doable? Does it ever get there?
He needs, like, Rustwicks to be another of his primes.
Yes, which can happen. You can go infinite.
Or Camera Thread, right?
Yes, or Camera Thread.
What if he just really wants to drive the fear in and just play Survival of the Fittest ping this turn? It's like, oh, you don't know what's coming.
I mean, then he will 100% get Ticketus on the following turn. Yeah, still just get the 9/9 as the copy, but that's fine. I think for as long as he can counter pressure and stop the Ticketus coming down, like that's very much to his advantage, right? Like any turn you can make your opponent cast minimum Siphon Soul, they cannot Ticketus, right? Which is such a big deal.
This is also a huge deal that the one Cascading was burnt and one Cascading is still in the deck. So, which is massive when we're looking at Yasharaj's potential here, because there just isn't a way to, like, 0 mana remove the board on Bozzzton's side, which would make the world of difference, because then I think Jarla would be looking at, you know, just maybe even just a Yasharaj turn with Strongmen if there was a Cascading in the pool.
Right.
I think I still just, like, Siphon the 13. Ticketus hero power, right?
How much mana do you have?
Oh, not enough.
13?
I don't know what I was looking at. No, it's a crazy game, Sol. I'm losing it. I don't know what's possible anymore.
That wasn't even close, Raven. That's legitimately 13 mana.
I'm too used to just look at this mage hand where everything costs 0 or 1. I'm sorry. There's no forgiving that one. That's my bad. I'm literally so close to my monitor now, just staring at these cards, working out what crazy play is going to make the day here. Kargath, though, is huge because this 10 health is the fear factor for Bozzzton, or at least that's what Jarla will think.
Hold on.
I'm scared that I can hear typing.
I mean, are any of the primes beasts?
I want to say no.
Does not appear so. No, obviously they'd have to be like fairly cheap beasts as well, like very specific.
Oh wait, of
guardian
course.
Animals, but...
6R, right?
Oh yeah. Good point. Yeah.
Jeez, you laugh at me about mana cost, but you don't even know cards.
It still wouldn't pull it though because it'd cost too much, right? It's the
Yes.
Well, thank you for demonstrating Jarla's deck. It's the actual prime beast that goes in, so it costs too much that gets to get summon guardian animals.
You can kill this, still have a crazy board, and still now, you know, start to once again just threaten the lethal of this game. Insane.
Right. That's the one. That is absolutely the one, Raven.
So, is it like Canrathed Brawl?
What to do?
Good question.
Because Devolving obviously is a nightmare against 6R, right? Like, that's not the play.
Wait, are the little tokens from expendable performers demons? I really hope for Bozzzton's
I
sake
am
that they're not.
99.9% saying no.
Okay.
Because they're just demon hunters, right?
Okay.
I think he just wants to actually land the Canra third. I didn't know if Bozzzton was more bothered about getting them shuffled in or not. Yeah. I guess there's not much to actually punish this. Oh, the 6/6s from Soul.
From Soul Mirror, yeah.
Insane.
Yup, that, Bozzzton, is the correct reaction to this game of Hearthstone. You are doing it right.
Jarla's only got himself to blame.
Well,
He put Rustwicks in the deck.
He did, yeah. No,
I mean,
he did put Rustwicks in the deck.
If you want shenanigans, that's what happens.
It's just so hard to find this turn to
Yeah.
Ticketus. Like, any turn he can do it, he just deletes all of the remaining value from Bozton's deck, essentially.
And he kind of wants to now trade into Rustwicks first and then Ticketus, right?
But how? Like,
I never said I had a how.
You just can't do that and live, let alone kill the Rustwicks and do that and live.
Just siphon Ticketus Alex this turn, just like I mentioned earlier.
Oh, of course, yeah. How foolish of me, yeah. You've upgraded to 20 mana. Do you not want a hero power on top of that as well? Make it.
Don't be greedy. Don't be greedy.
Okay. Okay. I don't see it. I just don't see the
plays
turn.
Ticketus this
He's not dead. He's not. I mean, he's not dead if he plays Ticketus, but I think he's. Or I think this is a better argument: is that he's not dead if he plays McGurgle either.
He's just not dead if he did anything, I think, at that point. So.
Oh,
Why not? Wait.
his primes
Wait, is it
have just
lethal?
been the giga nuts.
Is it lethal? Hellfire? Ping? Anything? Scrap shot? Hellfire? Scrap shot? Survival?
Saying words. You're not helping.
Oh, it's lethal. It's got to be. I'm not even counting that.
Yeah, you never count.
It's 1 billion lethal.
Yeah, it's 1 billion damage. It's actually 1 billion damage.
When I say
Ping Hellfire. You ping Hellfire, scrap shot one of the taunts. You just trade the small one into the other taunts. 35 goes face. It's giga lethal, yeah.
just wait. Okay. Traded the biggest one into the taunt. He's actually 29 for sure. Wow, what a game of Hearthstone. Thumbs up from Bozzzton. And honestly, he got away with that one because that was looking pretty dire for most of that game. And then, of course, Rustwick swings in. And most importantly, I guess, the Soul Mirror swings in to save the day. And it led to shenanigans, Sol. What can I say?
It was some grade A, farm grade, top cut sirloin beef Hearthstone that we just watched there, Raven. That was the absolute cream of the crop. Cannot ask for anything better. Deck of Lunacy, even with all the madness that brings, was not enough to get there. And then suddenly, Soul Mirror Envoy Prime. And honestly, shout outs to Bozzzton and you for spotting that straight away, because I may have got there before the end of the turn, but I confess that I had not seen it at the time that you did. And clearly Bozzzton had as well, because he was mousing over the card, the Jewel of N'Zoth, and like he literally saw him look at the card, Jewel of N'Zoth in his hand, look at the Envoy on the other side of the board, and then be like, okay, I guess that's a win condition.
Wait a minute.
And what a win condition it ended up being.
Yeah, it was huge, right? And you know what? Like, obviously crazy things happened. Things like this are actually few and far between in Hearthstone at the moment, so I'm all for it. Honestly, subtle whether some people like it or not. And that is an important step for this match in general as well, because I think, as we can see throughout most of the game, even with that Lunacy, Jarla was in a great spot to take the game, but he never had the chance to drop that Ticketus. Then the craziness happened, and now it means that Bozzzton's only got his Rogue to win a game with, and I think that even though you can argue whether the Rogue should win a game in this series, I think if it has 2 goes at it, one weapon draw and things might go well.
These are some top draw reactions coming out from Bozzzton here, giving out final thumbs up at the end. But yeah, obviously when a game gets that insane, it gets pretty difficult to navigate, and I think Bozzzton found his way out of it very, very nicely. I certainly got lost immediately, because even like the decision to the decision to play it straight away when I was like, oh no, maybe you hold it because you get death rattles. No, of course you don't, because it's the actual prime forms that go into the deck. It's not, you don't draw the death rattles, right? Like the minions that you're going to draw don't have it. So yeah, of course the decision to do it straight away was absolutely correct, even not considering survival of the fittest being thrown into that as well. So congrats to Bozzzton and of course to Jarla for keeping a cool head. I think they both did everything they could in that scenario, but just wasn't to be. Bozzzton just had the fates on his side for that one.
And I'll just say, Zal, don't worry about losing track just a little bit of what's going on. I could not add up simple mana numbers of cards that hadn't changed mana that game. None of Jarla's cards changed cost, and I was just making up how much. It was just because I was in the role of the mage.
It was great. I really enjoyed that. Like, everyone does it where you miss it. You think you have 11 mana, right? You miscount by 1, but like to miss by 3, that is spectacular. It's the fact that you added a hero power to the end. It was so bold. Look, you'd already spent 11 mana, and then you wanted to hero power as well.
How much do I say you should hero power every turn as Drax Assault?
Yeah.
Well, let's try, I guess, and calm down a tiny bit and get into this game number 4 here. Bozzzton going to be on this, I guess, throwback of a stealth rogue that we had quite a lot last expansion, and see if he can get it done. And he is going to go up against Jarla's Warlock to do it with here.
So obviously he is playing Greyheart Sage and stealth minions in place of Shank and all the poisons that we're kind of seeing from the kind of more modern version of the deck. And I do think that creates a much weaker deck in general, because it limits your routes to card draw, right? It creates more possibilities where you get starved of cards, more possibilities where you're not able to hunt for those weapons effectively, not to mention the fact you're only playing half as many of those weapons to begin with, which makes it much more difficult to come up with a more aggressive plan.
Right.
On the plus side, you do have the ability to make bigger boards earlier. You are more resistant to someone just playing Ooze in their deck, for example, because you actually have more of a minion base to build on. But overall, I think the Shank deck is just leaps and bounds beyond this one, and I was extremely surprised to see anyone submitting this deck this time around. Yeah,
I mean, for me, rogue without like field contact needs and other stuff needs to be questioned, right? Just for the sheer power of that card alone, it's like just the new Greyheart Sage. But again, as you mentioned, the minions can get some repeat damage, which can maybe make up for the lack of Shank, for example, in the list. And Bozzzton is going to be able to at least stick this board initially.
I think understanding with this hand, because he does not have self-sharpening just yet, he is going to have to protect minions. He is going to have to get repetitive damage. Of course, that could all get blown up immediately by School Spirits on curve if it's there, but he is playing the aggro deck. That generally means he's going to have to take risks where available, and goes ahead and does that. Does pick up Swindle here. It's very nice. Can be combo activated with the Sinister Strike here.
And also as well, I think Bozzzton can glean a lot of information from Jarla's turn, because he could have had Soul Share, Drain Soul, School Spirits that turn, didn't do any of them, and tapped Armored instead. And although you can argue that maybe Jarla would do that even if he did have those cards in hand, but I think there's at least a nod towards, maybe not a Soul Share, not a Drain Soul in it, at least.
Two things from Bozzzton that I like him doing this turn. He played his cards out for tempo before he stopped to draw more cards, always something that I'm a big fan of, and he spent his freaking mana that turn, which is Hearthstone 101. You know where that Sinister Strike is going, because there's literally no other option. So if you have one mana floating, just rip it at the face that turn. Love to see it.
Looks like it's going to be an activation for Swindle, especially because Wicked Stab is so close to even just upgrading to 4, right? It's literally going to double its damage next turn, so I like this a lot. Even though it might end up Bozzzton, having to float a mana, I still think this was really good.
I think you still attack. Okay, Bozzzton disagrees. So there's nothing else in my hand that I'm married to playing next turn, right? So I like attacking for 3 there. Your opponent trades your minion, and then you just have another stealth minion in your hand. You play that, you play the Greyheart Sage, and that's your turn 5, right? Because otherwise...
It does appear to make sense, doesn't it?
Yeah. This allows him, of course, to draw 2 cards, and if either of these cards are now playable and deal damage, then that's a win for him. That is not the case here.
Can spend the mana with just Dagger up, though, and then maybe set up something like Deadly Poison, Prize Plunderer to get the weapon swing through next turn.
True. He does need to get a weapon of reasonable attack sooner rather than later to perhaps get that Cutting Class cast as well. Self-sharpening sword, cutting class cast. Yeah, this is not the easiest set of words to get out in this game.
Rather you than me.
Yeah.
Here, a relatively weak turn again from Jarla. Like, yeah, Siphoned Soul clears up a minion, the Ogremancer can trade, but that's pretty much the whole turn.
It is.
Like, can he afford to just heal 3 past to an extent? I mean, we can see yes, because obviously this Ogremancer is going to do a lot of work. But now maybe the Wicked Stab goes to the Ogremancer.
It might have to, right?
It opens up literally the rest of Bozzdton's hand, right? Outside of the 2 minions.
Yeah, he would have loved to have more minions, right? Because maybe if he had 2 minions that he could play, where he could go like minion, spell, and then like prize plunderer, the 3/4 for maybe only the cost of like 1 taunt on the board at that point, then he might go for it, but he just can't do that. He has to spawn multiple taunts before he's able to prize plunder the Ogremancer. So I think just doing it this way around and using the prize plunderer to deal with the taunts is probably more reasonable.
Do you think he'd ever keep the prize plunderer this turn and go for like Swindle Spectral? And then use whatever to kill the 2/2 if it's a problem next turn?
I think that makes sense. I honestly feel like... I'm not sure if that was even Swindle, whether it was Secret Passage, because Swindle doesn't draw sword, whereas Secret Passage does draw sword, right? Or at least sometimes draws sword. And I feel like sword is where he wants to be right now with Deadly Poison, Cutting Class, with, I believe, no ooze in Jarla's deck, unless he is running an ooze and I'm crazy.
No, he's not.
He has been known to be an ooze gamer, but yeah, no, not on this occasion. And that's the problem, is the counter pressure now coming out from Jarla.
So now there's a chance at going, like, getting the other stealth minion down, and then hoping Secret Passage does the job next turn. Or doing it the other way around, of course. This is really tricky, because I think these draws would have to be perfect for Bozzdton to have a chance now.
Alright, that's a sword.
Okay.
Yikes. Yes, that's a sword.
Could have been worse. It's a sword and a Deadly Poison, and he can swing it at face this turn.
Yep.
And he can replay the 3/1, right? Because the Death Rattle will go to this hand.
Yep. All of these things are true.
I've seen worse turns.
I think you definitely just cast the 2 preps, just because you absolutely do not want to top deck them here. But he does. He does want to draw prep.
I guess.
Why does he want to draw prep?
Does the second Secret Passage change that at all? Like, now he has 1 mana Cutting Class, 1 mana Secret Passage. Oh, well, sorry, 2 1-mana Cutting Classes.
Why is that an argument for drawing prep?
Well, if he's going to draw that many cards and then he ends up with, for example, the second stab or anything, you know, like just anything to play, although I think he's actually low. I guess 1 Thief is a reason as well.
Yeah, so he has 1 Thief and he has 1 Wicked Stab remaining, I believe, in terms of things that prep can actually cast.
And 1 Maker as well, I think.
Yeah. Okay, sure. Alright, yeah, fair enough.
Only because of the volume of card draw. If he only had 1 Cutting Class, I'm right with you. You know what I mean? And like yeah, 100% don't like it. But with 2, like, that's a lot.
Okay.
Also, what's very important for Bozzdton here is, although he's under a lot of pressure, like this armor, I think, might have weirdly helped him as well a little bit. Because if he can do enough stuff to prize plunder the 5/5, then it's unlikely Jarla gets lethal next turn.
It's also just dawned on me a very real upside for those still being in their deck, and it's exactly this, which is just happening right now, right? It's because you know that there could be a Corrupted Ticketus in your opponent's hand, so getting them to burn your preps is a lot better than them burning your 1 Thieves or your Wicked Stabs, right? Which I think is actually the core motivator behind it. So in retrospect, I actually do like that decision from Bozzdton. I think that makes sense.
Yep, let's take a look at what he's got left after that fun session there. The Wicked Stab. I do believe that is real. He didn't burn one, right?
He played one on the Ogremancer. So he
but he
has
didn't.
one wicked stab left.
Yeah. Sorry, I meant he's got one. Ticketus didn't just burn it, right? The second one.
I think so, yeah.
You don't break the walls.
Well, make a Sinister Strike. No, Brain Freeze.
Brain Freeze,
not
though,
it.
For the 8/8 though, can buy him time.
Yeah, there's still 18 left on board even without it. But he does have Prize Plunderer to finish out this
to kill
turn,
the
which can take
5/5.
the 5/5 out of play. That's Wicked Stab now. That's 9-13.
Choose soon.
But without both One Thieves, how does he find the last piece of damage?
Hold in the shadows.
He's not got the
Yeah.
mana, right?
What's happened to him?
Is he playing enough minions? Is he not playing Wicked Stab? And he's playing enough minions to just plunder the 8/8?
Is that actually 8 cards? Okay. That's 8 cards.
I hope so for Bozzzton's sake.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Yeah. Well done. Good job. Good job, Bozzzton.
He also traded 3 damage there.
Well, he has 7 plus 4 right on the following turn, which is reasonable.
Also, funnily enough, Jiraxxus would have actually been lethal, right? If he hadn't.
Okay, and the trade also plays around Jiraxxus.
I actually didn't notice that till I looked to the far left then. I was like, oh yeah, 3 damage.
That is a lot of things to consider that turn. It's actually a very impressive turn from Bozzzton. In the getting all of those things right, actually counting up to the 8 cards to be able to deal with the 8/8 on that turn, playing around the Jiraxxus lethal on the counter swing, and still having exact lethal set up himself as long as no soul fragment is drawn. That's so many things to consider on that turn, and it looks like he got most, if not all of it right.
Now, honestly, with the position he was in after that Ticketus, can't argue with this whatsoever. There is, of course, School Spirits for Jarla. The only issue with that is there would pretty much only be School Spirits for Jarla. And does he tap?
He would have to tap and heal. He knows there's a Wicked Stab, right? He just absolutely knows.
Oh.
He's going Corrupted Strongman instead. Yeah, this is probably the line, right? Because he knows the last card is Prep that he hasn't seen.
Oh, and he can't tank it.
Can't tank it. Yeah, exactly. So yeah, if he went School Spirits, he would have to... Yeah, if he went School Spirits, he'd have to tap, right? To be able to heal up from the fragments. So this is absolutely the line.
Also, if he was 1 mana more, he could stab, go face, right? In over 2 turns. At least have that as some kind of plan.
Yes.
Wow. so close there for Bozzzton, but not quite enough. And honestly, just Jarla fitting in Ticketus, which often doesn't really come up in these aggro matchups for Warlock. It's normally decided without Ticketus intervention going on there, but it is actually going to be the card that really made the day because it burnt a lot of Bozzzton's key damage going on there. So pretty crazy, honestly.
Yeah, the 2 One Thieves being burned were huge. And clearly both players were considering Ticketus as well. Apologies for not catching that earlier, but I think that's certainly a big part of the reason why Bozzzton let the 2 preps go back into his deck, is because, I was looking at it as these are garbage cards, I don't want to draw them. But Bozzzton was looking at it as these are garbage cards, I will let my opponent burn them if they're going to play Ticketus, right? Because that protected his Wicked Stab and his One Thieves. And as it stood, the last card in his deck did still end up being a prep, so he was not really rewarded for that situation. I think just there you saw on that zoom, he was just watching those One Thieves melt away, understanding that he really need those options. And here with the Twisting Nether, momentarily thinking he wins, and then the Strongman coming down to shatter the Hearts and Dreams. And that means we are going all the way to game number 5 on this one, and it is going to be the Rogue versus Priest, which I theorized at the beginning, if you have the right build of Rogue, I think is almost a free win for the Rogue. With this build of Rogue, I'm really not sure. I think that's one of the big issues with this build that Bozzzton has, is that he potentially concedes quite a few percentage points to Rogue with not having 160 damage weapon with a Swine Tusk Shank.
Yeah, I do think a lot of it is going to be purely, as Priest often is at the moment, is purely based on can Jarla get those big board clears? Because, and some of the smaller ones, what's the one I'm looking for? Condemn, sorry. Condemn, although can do some work against Rogue, doesn't do enough, right? Because there's just going to be more minions and so on. We're really looking for pretty much Samuro and anything else that can clear up that board, heal him up, because otherwise, if Bozzzton gets off to a good minion start, although Priest does have tools to deal with it, it could just be too much too soon, because there is a lot of burst damage, especially as we've seen from Rogue with the Secret Passage, with Swindles, with all these things to just quickly draw through cards and chuck them out. It could be a little bit too fast, but Jarla is actually, running that super early one, right? He has the Soul Mirror and the Yogg, but literally everything else is anti-aggro going on here.
Yeah, but we saw him get punished for it once, right? Like I said, this is why we've been seeing people run those really slimmed down versions, is that they don't really care about, beating Control Warlock, or if someone brings a Control Warrior trying to beat that, or any of that nonsense. They're like, I'm playing Priest, it's an anti-aggro deck, I'm playing it because I expect people to play aggro. So they're playing a curve that tops out of 4 and then just having like one card to maybe ensure that they don't run out of gas, right? Be that a Malagos or a Ysera, usually. Just something that feeds you resources so you don't run dry. Jarla is choosing to go a little bit greedier, and we have seen him get punished for that once so far, just by drawing all of that greed in his opening hand against Face Hunter. So we'll see what happens this time around.
Now, this does look pretty reasonable, though. Not all 4, but just I just like keeping at least some early minions to actually play out if possible, because again, like Bozzzton ignores them at his own peril a lot of the time. Look at Spellweaver, Sethic Veilweaver, and Scorpid. They're both good cards that can't be ignored. You can play them nice and early on curve and contend some of these kind of awkward minions. See what he does, though, because like you said, like last time when Jarla threw the Condemn against Hunter, right, then it felt a little bit strange because Hunter just plays a lot of 1 health minions in some respect, but looks like he's kept hold of at least some of that.
Whoa! Spy Mistress into Self-Sharpening Sword. This is about as good as it gets for Bozzzton's version of the deck. Can follow that up with Secret Passage, looking for deadly poisons and whatever else he can jam on there as well, trying to get max damage out of that. This is looking like it might just be a problem for Jarla this game.
Yeah, even like the Prep Passage on 4 just being enough to open up, just any extra bits of any extra mana for cards as well, just to pile on that pressure. It's going to be pretty huge here.
Yeah, Prep Passage on 4 also allows you to hit Stealth Minion into Greyheart Sage just for massive hand refill, which is really, really important as well.
Jarla does have a pretty okay hand himself, though, right? 2 Sethics, the Scorpid, and also that Hothead as well that you could maybe even coin out.
True.
What's Bozzzton considering here? Like whether he attacks with the minion or not?
I mean, Dagger Up versus playing Prize Plunderer even, right? Like, playing a Prize Plunderer now, if both those minions stick, changing your clock from 3 damage a turn to 5 damage a turn, even if those 2 minions stick for 2 turns from this point, I think that's an enormous change in the clock. I think that's a brief consideration. I think you turn it down quite quickly because Prize Plunderer is just a nutty card. Yeah. And then, the rest of the turn is just deciding whether or not you attack in this spot. And I think you certainly do. Because even if you draw Greyheart Sage next turn, you're not overly sad about it because you have Self-Sharpening Sword to play on turn 3. All right.
Is it still swing, then equip weapon? Just hold?
I mean, you could also Self-Sharpening prep Deadly Poison and kill the 3/6 if you're worried about buffs and Apotheosis coming down.
I was thinking you could do something like that next turn, but with Prize Plunderer?
Sure.
Just delay Secret Passage, though. It's tough. As always with decks like this, even though they're built to be, kind of fast and spend all their mana on not a lot of cards every turn, it's there's a lot of decision points here that are going to greatly affect the game.
Yeah, absolutely.
They choose to clear it off. Bozzzton just saying, no, I don't want to see an Apotheosis drop down on that monster of a minion. Oh. Is there an actual correct choice, do you think, in this instance, Saul, of Passage versus Cutting Class? Is it just always Cutting Class this turn?
I think it's always cutting class.
Okay.
Yeah. It just costs 0, right? If you had to like make the argument, like say your weapon had 1 less attack and you could attack and bring it down to 1, and then it was a question of like cutting class for 1 versus secret passage for 1, then maybe we could talk about it. But yeah, cutting class for 0, I think I'm always playing the cutting class. Well, Brain Freeze is really nice for killing that Scorpid, so let's ignore that and pick the one that deals 10 damage.
Well, I mean, that was just the conversation I was going to have. That's the thing. I was literally about to say, I think, weirdly enough, you ignore the face damage and just clear the board again.
Really?
I think so.
You want to pick the card that doesn't do 10 damage over the one that does do 10.
But like, are you expecting to clear the board for the rest of the game?
No.
If not, that Mask of Cthulhu might not do 10 damage to the face.
True.
Which is what scares me, right? If that was Fireball, then I'm with you, 100%. But because it's Mask of Cthulhu on 7, or I guess there's a prep in hand, but I don't know, it would...
That's what I'm saying. Like, you have a prep in hand. It's like, it's how many stats your opponent can put into play next turn versus your mask. Yeah.
It leaves a minion on board, though, right?
Well, that's the other question, right? Like, I can kind of flip your line of questioning back at you. It's like, if you're committing to killing minions now, are you going to keep doing that every turn for the rest of the game? So at some point, I think you will ignore a minion. Yeah, right. It's hard. It's hard, honestly. This deck is not easy to play.
Well, Thrive, I imagine, was the pick there. Yep. Really good for just digging into some of those key cards.
Because again, this is the difference, right? Like, if this was a Shank, I would not be having this conversation. Kill every freaking minion they play, right? Like, it does not matter. Kill every single minion, keep playing poisons, get all those durabilities back. Absolutely doesn't matter. You can afford to do that. This is a self-sharpening sword. It's finite. If you keep swinging at minions, if you keep throwing spells at minions, you are going to run out of damage.
Yeah, it actually... This is going to sound so silly, especially if you ask someone from, 6 months ago. Okay, that's better.
Yep.
Purely because, like, the fact that there's only 2 charges left on this weapon, this 5-2, and that seems weak, is kind of silly to say, but it's true.
Yep.
It's like, what, you can only do 10 damage with this weapon? Or I guess 11.
Pitiful.
I know, yeah. Wicked Stabs make up a ton of damage, though, especially a little bit later in the game.
Yep. I mean, right? Are you committing to killing every minion for the rest of the game? No, absolutely you're not.
Well, that other one had poison, didn't it? So
this one's a Sethic. I think I'm slightly more scared of this one.
There's no Bloodweaver, okay? We're fine.
All right, that's nutty.
Yep.
That helps a lot. Hysteria was already there for like some kind of clearing power, but Condemn is certainly a lot cleaner.
What is a loon's will?
No spells here that I think Jarla can really afford to point at minions, though, unless he wants to really gamble with like double Sethic, renew his Sethic.
He could start with Thrive, right?
To what end? What are you looking for in your deck?
I mean, he could actually just Thrive at Apotheosis, trade into the 3/3, and just not care about the 2/1s for a turn.
It's true. True. You do then, like, you're healing for 4 with the potential of healing for more, I guess, but you're healing for 4 and then deliberately leaving 4 on the board as well, right?
Yeah, but you make them have to kill the Sethic.
Yes. Yeah. In terms of pure healing, it's net 0, but they do have a problem to deal with at that point.
Another Condemn.
Condemn again, yeah, sure. Yeah, just going for the bread and butter play. Clear the board. Makes sense.
It's fine, there's Raised Dead, there's another Sethic anyway, and most importantly, it's less damage to hit his face with. Bozzzton has enough to do this turn that doesn't require him to play Secret Passage, unless he really wants to play it just to find the other weapon again.
Yeah, re-equip the weapon. Because he would really like to be able to get this done from off-board, right? Without playing more minions. Because every minion he plays is a danger of Blademaster Apotheosis coming back the other way. Whereas if he can just get it done straight up with weapon swings and sinister strikes and wicked stabs, then he never has to deal with that situation.
I guess what's good is he doesn't have to play many minions, right? Like, it's not like this rogue is going to make a super wide board.
Choose soon.
Yeah, it still hurts, though.
So many options.
Needs to decide soon.
So are you trying to rush Bozzzton?
Well, they took away my charge ability, so I've got to now.
Ah, fair enough.
Just a reminder for everyone as well, like, this is the final match of top 8 going into semi-finals, so the winner gets to continue playing here, can maybe make the finals, and bags like a significant more amount of points.
Yep.
A lot on the line for both these players.
Palm reading again. Gives him a chance to dig for Desperate Prayer, Flash Heal, all of those little juicy boy. There is that Desperate Prayer. Snap picked immediately from Jarla. No messing about. It's incredibly rare to see this man make an immediate decision, but that is exactly what he did.
Another Condemn, but I actually like Renew more here. I think the second Condemn, the Condemn he already has in hand, sorry, for him should probably be the last one he should need to play. Does that make sense?
Is that true? Yeah, possibly. With Hysteria as well, right? The problem is like he's using one of those cards this turn, almost certainly, right? Like probably Hysteria, because it's the harder card to guarantee gets usage. Now he is just stuck with just one removal in his hand, which is potentially problematic.
It's true, but you can make a 10-10 next turn.
I mean, if he wants to skip healing, he can make a 10-10 next turn.
I mean, if that 10-10 is Samuro, I'd take it.
True. Yeah. Good.
And then put Apotheosis on that bad boy, and I think you get healed up to full again in your next game of Hearthstone. Swindle, good pickup here.
Opponent's a Swindle, picks up the Wicked Stab as well.
You actually prefer the stealth play instead with Grey Heart Sage?
Yeah, they both draw 2 cards, right? But this also puts 6 power in play, and you've seen your opponent use 2, relative AoE removals against stealth.
Like you mentioned before, they could have actually drawn the weapon this way round, right?
Yes, very true. Swindle never draws the weapon because it's just a spell and then a minion if comboed. Prize Plunderer, super clutch off the top there for Bozzzton.
I'm feeling like it's 10-10 time for Jarla.
You are trolling, right?
I mean, he can still renew and he can still condemn.
I guess that's...
It's a 10-10! He can counter
That's
race!
true, yeah. Yes, you do it. Yeah, I wasn't processing that the condemn costs 0 alongside that. You might actually be right. Oh, is that a Lucia? Is that a Lucia? Is that a Lucia?
I don't know.
Oh!
It's a Lucia. Surely you can't play a Lucia, because then you give Bozzzton a 10-10.
Give Bozzzton a 10-10. Oh, Devouring Plague!
Second Idol of Yasharaj! Now I'm trolling.
What is Elun's will?
Though I agree with this pick, I still like the 10-10.
I do too. Yeah, I'm on board with you now. Weapons gone. You're at 19. I'm going to ask huge questions for Bozzzton to deal massive damage.
It's like Yogg, Ysera, Zarella, Samuro, Mankrik, and maybe like a one-maker?
One-maker, yeah. So, just all the minions, yeah.
Well, no, right, because like Sethic's pretty relevant if you're making a 10-10 Sethic, right?
Yeah.
Like, that's pretty important.
Yeah.
Or 10-10 Poisonous is relevant, right?
Yeah. Means it goes face harder. Yeah.
So many options.
Ho in the shed.
Bozzzton's like, he must be out of Condemn by now.
I mean, he is, but he has the next best thing. If anything, he has a better thing to be able to deal with the next stealth board. With Devouring Plague.
As long as it's not too wide, which it can't be right now, but it's close.
It is very close, yeah. This is like the dream card, right? Like, if this deck was still in the meta, Priests would play Devouring Plague, right?
Oh,
like,
yeah.
It's just so insane at killing stealth 1 health minions, which is like 90% of the minion pool for this deck.
It's the minefield of Priest.
Yes, exactly. Which is ironic, because playing against Priest feels like the minefield of playing Hearthstone.
For Bozzzton, though, has the brain freeze to stall out this 10-10, and as I mentioned before, like, because it's not Sethek, it is just a 10-10, which sounds silly to say, but it's not going to gain, it's not going to active bonuses to being on the board, right?
Bozzzton looks genuinely in pain after he sees that Devouring come down. Oh, that got pointed at his face. Yep, I knew it as soon as I saw the arrow. Like, that got pointed at his face 100%.
And the big deal now is Jarla is getting to the point in his hand where he just has Mind Render. He can just Mind Render and throw everything away from Bozzzton's hand. Bozzzton only got 3 cards left. One of them is the weapon.
Yep,
And
it's
then,
weapon, 1 stab, and 1 thief.
One thief, yeah.
Yep.
So many options.
And it's looking like it's not. And this is the story, I think, of Priest versus these sort of high aggro decks that, you know, like do rely on minions. This is very similar an outcome to, like, if this was Face Hunter, for example, sometimes, right, where they just have enough heal to just ride out the game.
Yeah. But I think the big talking point is, like, if you just have a Shank in your deck, it just doesn't matter.
Oh, yes.
Like, that Shank is just, like, I'm calling it 60, and that's a guess. Like, that's a conservative estimate of how much damage you can do with 1 Shank against Priest.
Yeah, it's why I mentioned, like, you know, an aggro deck focused on minions a lot of the time, right? Because this has much more of a minion focus, same as Hunter as well.
Right.
So it's like, yeah, this is where Priest gains that benefit from, you know, getting potential big apotheosis, just having more heal, and being able to control the minions on the board.
Right. Board being built one more time here for Bozzzton if Jarla does not pick up an answer immediately.
He's going to Elutia and just equip the weapon, isn't he?
Yeah, was that?
Oh, Condemn number 100, and yeah, I knew.
Oh, it's not done. It's not done. Bozzzton, mate, look away. Look away now. You don't want to see what happens next. That's enough. Please, for your own sanity, concede this game now. You do not want to see what happens next to you, mate.
I can understand the frustration. We've all been there, right? Where, well, you know, this is Hearthstone. 2 of each card in the deck, and then Priest plays 8 clears of the same card against you. Like, come on!
So Jarla here is considering Raised Dead, right? And what that means for his opponent, because he doesn't want to play it. But at the same time, he wants to Elutia, he wants to play his opponent's cards, but he doesn't want his opponents to be able to Raise Dead and maybe play 2 more stealth minions, which then start pushing 6 damage again on the following turn. But
he also knows I mean, I keep bringing it up. He has a 10-7, he'll have a 1-3, and he will, like, for sure know that there's at least 1 Wicked Stab that he can just play, at least, in this hand, which is removing a ton of damage.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, let him have minions.
Also, if you don't play it this turn, Bozzzton can just play his whole hand on the following turn, right? Like, he can just literally play every card remaining in his deck, and you know that.
And then he can,
what they are.
Then he can never play it, because it's a 1-3, right? And he just never raised this 10-7? Okay, fair enough, that's just going to be it. Jarla condemning Bozzzton across the world right now, as that is going to be the last game, not only of this series, but of the day. Jarla going to make it through to top 4, and you know, for some of the stick Bozzzton's been getting for this lineup, well, he's won matches up to this point, and that was extremely close.
It was extremely close, but I think it also quite clearly highlighted some of the limitations that his build has, right? And that's not to say his build of the deck doesn't have positives. Now, for me, I would not have brought this version of the deck. I would have brought, you know, the pure straight-up poison rogue that we're seeing from other people if I was going to go with an aggro strategy, which I probably would have done. But his deck does have upside, right? It does have more game against Ooze as the #1 thing, right? So if he thought that other people were going to... if he thought other people were going to be playing Ooze,